Okay, so we have a few minutes, we have about little more than 10 minutes left. I actually just want to think a minute with you about offering support to each other. And I want to share one more model. I think you all know by now I like frames and models for offering support to a colleague. So let's just start by thinking, let me just get my slides, everybody, one second. So, we talked at the very beginning about that colleague who you thought was having a hard time, right? And what what you noticed, right? So I want to just let you all in on something that's probably not a surprise, which is that the signs of distress that we see in colleagues are much like the chart we showed earlier of other signs of stress, right? Trouble sleeping, irritability, negative, but maybe a little more in the professional realm are things like they're not showing up to meetings, they're missing their deadlines, or they're seeming really discouraged. And again, I don't want to underestimate substance abuse and substance use, which someone mentioned at the beginning. So when you're noticing that colleague, that partner of yours in this work who you think is maybe in trouble, what do you do? And what I just want to emphasize is that social support really is not just one of those namby-pamby soft words that doesn't mean anything. We study social support, and again we find that this is what predicts resilience in trauma-facing work. Say it again. Social support predicts resilience in trauma-facing work. So whether you're a therapist, an emergency responder, a journalist, a doctor, if you feel alone, and if you feel isolated, and if you feel like you don't actually share with people about what the work's like, those are the folks in those fields who tend to show poor outcome. They're not happy, they're burnt out. So how do you notice the social support? Remember that word notice, that you're giving and receiving. And I just want to show you one interesting breakdown that's been studied about social support. If you pay attention to this chart for a second, and I want you to think about that friend of yours, that colleague who you thought was in trouble. Okay, put that in your mind. Social support has been broken into sort of 4 types after a trauma or stress. The first, just quickly, is emotional support. Really basic. How are you? I'm worried about you. Are you okay? I'm here for you, right? Just emotional support. Pretty soft, pretty straightforward. Instrumental support is more where you say to this person, can I do something for you? Can I pick up something that you need picked up? Can I edit something for you? Can I talk to someone for you? Can I listen to a transcript or transcribe, whatever, but you do something. Instrumental. Informational support is more, let me get you some facts that might help with this, right? So whether it's suggestions from your own experience, knowledge, let me give you some info about therapists that they now have, at Dart Center that will be accepting applications, right? That's information. Information, though, is you're giving information to help with that stress. And then finally, appraisal. And that's a really interesting category. It's when you're kind of like, hey, can we think about this together? I think of appraisal as meaning making. It's when you say to them, I'm willing to listen to what you're struggling with. Can I bounce my ideas off you too and my reaction? So for a minute, using the chat, think about these categories a second. So the emotional support, instrumental, informational, or appraisal. Think about that colleague. What did you do to support them, if anything? Or what do you think they needed when you think back on what they were dealing with? So think about the colleague who was not doing great. What kind of support do you think, as you look at these, might have helped that colleague? I'm always interested to see where it breaks down into percentages. I'm thinking of a colleague of mine. Putting my answer, which was my colleague who was struggling, definitely needed someone to bounce stuff off of. She was thinking in a kind of distorted way. Yeah, it depends. Yeah, I'm just, if you have okay, so I just would like to see sort of where you all think the social support lands most. You've done them all, good. How about for you all? Any of these you find mostly helpful? So Jennifer's saying instrumental to the other colleague. Okay. So one of the things about this, I'm just waiting to see if anyone else wants to share. Noticing what kind you need means you're going to be able to say that to someone, right? You can say, you know what, I need to tell you about this and I don't even want you to react. Can I just vent, right? That's a very different ask than, can you please help me figure out what I'm going to do about this piece? It's really freaking me out, right? Or this source. So, and Patricia pointing out emotional most helpful. You usually know what you need. And that means colleagues usually know what they need too. So instead of just, as I've said earlier, reacting in the moment and barreling forward, pause and say, what would be helpful to you right now? Because I'm sensing that you're struggling and I want to be supportive. And just saying, what do you need? And then yourself practicing that yourself, which is, hey, I need, just you to listen. So I just want to make that a little more explicit. I know it's a little bit like one of these things that, is one of these charts that it's like, seems very dry, but again, practice this and you'll notice that social support is actually quite a concrete thing.